Welcome to We Had Movies, and I'm your host, Mo Yagi, and your other host,
Eric Leon.
woo!
We're back. It's been a while since we've had one of these.
I know, we try to make them as soon as possible, but like it's been an interesting summer, ups and
Yeah,
downs, things changing,
say the least.
but we'll try to keep it like as close together as possible.
Hmm?
But for now, we'll talk about. Well, yeah, I don't even know if I want to get into this just yet. It's just like I'm so like anxious to even mention it. It's just such a debacle. It's a
Listen,
sad,
the easiest way is a like a band-aid, just right off.
like rip it right off. Okay,
Just
yeah.
rip it right
So
off.
I don't know what I was thinking when I was in like grade nine, grade eight, like what kind of teenager I was. I was probably an annoying brat, but like I don't recall being with having such a poor sense of humor. But then again, I think my dad was funny. So there's got to be something missing there, right? Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. You have different brains. Brain chemistry is completely different. And somebody like Adam Sandler and the movie Billy Madison just hits the right spot as a teenage kid. You're high on pop and pizza and cake and candy and popcorn, and because I watched it like immediately on a friend's birthday, like the day it came
Friend's
out.
birthday, yeah.
Yeah, like yeah, everybody's seen it on a friend's birthday, I think, at least as far as I know. But that's how my story goes, and I just remember just like yeah, just being really, really happy
Well,
to watch that movie and enjoy it. And it was, and you know what?
I
I'm
mean,
gonna give myself
considering
credit.
the movie,
Yeah,
the subject matter, I would say it's pretty fitting that you watched it at someone's birthday. I think
yeah,
I feel like this is the kind of movie we would have watched when we were kids at someone's birthday party. Um,
exactly.
just
Yeah.
some goofy nonsense that came out, but that isn't to say it ages well. And
No,
uh,
I mean it doesn't. It no, it doesn't. It doesn't age well at all. It's
no,
very, very set in its one time, that it was funny in that time period, and then it just kind of um I mean, I still laughed at some minor things, and I'll talk about those little parts that still made me think it's funny, or still thought like, oh, that's more of this humor I was looking for. But most of it wasn't coming from Adam Sandler in the movie, right?
no, exactly.
Yeah.
I found myself laughing out loud hard at one person's joke who's like not even one of Adam Sandler's friends. If you're looking through the cast in this movie, you can
Mm-hmm.
see uh Norm Macdonald's in this, Chris Farley is in this, they're all friends of Adam Sandler.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's you're kind of expecting a good line here and there from one of those guys, but for me it was somebody else. And yeah,
No, and I
I'll get
mean,
to that.
yeah, that too, and I, you're right, and we'll get to that as well. I think that the thing was that not just that they had those actors, but it was a lot of more of physical comedy that was attempted than actual like lines, like you said, like there weren't
Comedic lines, yeah.
yeah, comedic lines. There wasn't any like major. Sometimes there was a punch, and then sometimes it was just kind of like just going nowhere, and you felt that, but you just kind of.
Yeah.
And I think as a kid it was really funny, but now like it's just like what, where is it going with this? And I think one of the big ones was the drunk penguin, right? The penguin that is always around, whenever
Yeah.
he's, yeah. So that kind of like died, that joke, a long, long time ago. And I don't think that's something that anybody will find. I don't know. There might still be somebody who will find it irrationally funny. I don't know, but
I don't think
I
so.
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't know. But putting that
The movie kind
aside,
of starts out that way, so
yeah,
I mean, it's not Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, so do you want to go ahead and just like give us the spiel of like the whole rundown of the film, and then we'll get into it.
yeah,
Yeah.
summarizing, basically it's Billy Madison, who's just this spoiled brat of a guy who um is going to be given control of what his family's company, but he has to complete grades 1 through 12 in how much time did they give him? Like 2 weeks or something?
Something like that. Yeah, 2 weeks, I think. You're right.
Yeah. And if he successfully completes it, he gets control of the company. Why they would even think of doing that with this guy, like knowing from the outset what he's like, I
I
don't know.
mean, yeah, and then yeah, you basically gave the main major plot summary, but like the little plots and subplots in between also could have been fun. But the problem is the major plot, and it's that there's this adult man who's very wealthy and probably in his, I don't know if he's supposed to be late 20s or early 30s. And I think he's supposed to be younger, right? He's supposed to be in his 20s. And there's this adult man who, because he's rich, his father is making him go back to school through, and I mean, again, this was his idea, and I there is a way to do this without actually doing all that, right? We know of the GED. Like there
Yeah,
is a general education, system that you could go through to prove that you have the right education level. But um anyway, putting that aside, like maybe like that didn't exist in that universe. So in this universe, we have to believe that also that all these parents have accepted that an adult man is going to school with their children
with
in
their kids.
grade
Yeah,
one. And everybody's hugging him in one scene. There's like scenes of him eating glue in front of the other kids. Like throwing, I mean, I'm not going to say I didn't laugh at the scene where he was just destroying kids with the dodgeball, but also what the heck, like what's that? Like it was just out
yeah,
of control. Like all of this is could be misconstrued in such a bad way, and it just doesn't come off right anymore now with the history that we have. Maybe because I've seen too many murder mysteries and like stories on Netflix and all this, but I don't know, like that just, it comes off weird and a little bit cringy when an adult man is in a school at such a young age. Now they do
it,
bring it up, and I think it was the school teacher that he actually hits on at some point.
mm,
Um, and she does bring to his attention, like, don't you think it's weird that what you're doing? And he just goes, yeah. And then that's it. And there's
well,
nothing.
and then at one point or another, like I wondered, like does this guy like have some sort of like undiagnosed developmental disorder? Like what the
Right. But
fuck is this guy's like issue? Like his infantilized voice, like isn't this a grown ass man? Like
well, was this movie
he's
released before Forrest Gump or after? Because I feel like there was like
this was 95. So I
95,
think around the same time.
same time. So I think that he behaved often like he was developmentally challenged, but not really. Like he, because that's not how developmentally challenged kids behave necessarily. He just does this weird exaggerated version of like a person who
And
doesn't care,
and
like, and just
and
kind
I
of
mean,
does whatever comes out of his head. And I'm not going to say I didn't imitate it as a child. Like I thought Adam Sandler was hilarious, right? So when he did the and all that stuff, like as a kid I was like, yeah, I want to do that with my parents and mess with them, right? But now
right?
watching it now as an adult, I totally understand where my parents were like, why do you think this is funny? Like this guy, this adult man is behaving like a complete moron, like but not like in a fun way either, like in a very obnoxious way.
In a
Right?
really like cringy way,
Cringy way,
for
yeah.
anybody, I would say, like, I think even a teenager watching this now, I think would just kind of they just kind of look at each other and be like, is this for real? Is this really happening? Like,
Maybe, or maybe they'll create some sort of like cult following around it, and then it'll be like this big thing, like behave like Adam
ugh.
Sandler. I don't know. Like that's the weird thing about how, you know, how these popular people become popular or famous. Like, because I always thought, like, I think it used to be on record, and I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, of course, but like that, like if you wanted to be on Saturday Night Live, for example, you had to have like a Harvard degree. You know what I mean? Like, and then somewhere along the line, you could just be Adam Sandler. You know what I mean? So like
I
the
mean,
standards changed, and so did the. And I'm not going to say the quality. It's just the what is
no,
considered humor has changed,
and
right?
I think this is the absolute genius of Adam Sandler is that
Right,
he figured out very early on in his career, and he's capitalized this like at every single turn, is
right.
to capitalize off of the lowest common denominator in society, right? Like, you
Yeah,
play the biggest idiot, buffoon, moron, and people will flock to your movie because somehow this guy's fucking relatable. Uh, Not really, because if you
not
think about
really.
it, I
No,
had I
not at
wanted to
all.
dig a little bit deeper because on the surface this is an incredibly stupid movie. But if you look at if you look at some of like you want to try to break the movie down into certain aspects, like you do come up with certain themes. And one of the big ones here is class and privilege. Because of
Mhm.
Billy's wealth, he has the privilege to behave like an absolute moron and get
Exactly.
away with it. And get away
Exactly.
with it. You know, anybody else, you'd be on the streets, right? But this guy, because of his immense wealth, he's able to like drink himself into hallucinations of seeing a fucking penguin everywhere. And
Which again makes no
all
sense.
all of the other
I've
nonsense
never drank
that
into
he
a
does.
stupor where I can see an image of a
No,
penguin.
I've
Like
never
I don't know.
hallucinated off alcohol. I feel like you'd
No.
black out before that happens.
Yeah, I
But
think
anyway,
so. But yeah.
um, it really demonstrates how much that that wealth allows him to do. Now, on the flip side, it the movie kind of critiques that privilege, and because he's forced to earn the company, right? He
Mhm.
has to go do the work to do it, right? It's ultimately it's not just going to be handed to him as I think he may have expected, or I don't know what he expected. I don't know if he just expected to live off of this family wealth for his entire life,
I
um,
mean, it looks like
or
that's what he
what.
was doing. Yeah.
I mean, his
I
friends certainly didn't know what he was up to because at one point
no.
Norm Macdonald is asking where Billy is, and he's like, he's in school, and he's just like, oh,
But
like
bring
they're
you bring up a
completely
good point.
oblivious of what's going on with each other, right?
Right. And you bring up a good point though. There is this like generation of, and I would say young adults and teenagers, from our like from the 80s, that basically, like we grew up with like lack of ambition or positive vibes towards, trying to achieve, because it just seemed so bleak any way you went, right, direction wise. So there was a lot of grunge, right? So
Hmm.
I feel like that's what Adam Sandler represents in a way, and I think that's where, as us as young adults, or I should say, like very young teenagers, would have like thought was, interesting, or what we related to, is the fact that, yeah, Adam Sandler kind of just lives his life not knowing where he's going with it. It's actually kind of and this is something going back to like my French studies background, but it's like Balzac's like Peau de Chagrin. And why I say it's like this, like, author from the 1700s, or should I say, what is it, 1800s? I can't remember now. It's been a while. And this writer from, French history, why is it so similar to this movie? And it's because it's this concept of this guy growing up in this world where he's a part of the upper class. He's kind of a part of the bourgeoisie and Balzac's
Hmm.
story, and he just kind of lives his life not having a destiny. Like, he doesn't know what the destination is because he doesn't know what the departure. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like he
He's
just
just
has
aloof.
everything handed to him, so there's
Yeah,
nothing to work for and there's nothing to achieve. So really, that's why in the end it was kind of a positive result of the film, where the outcome was he actually decided to hand over the whole thing to somebody more responsible than him. And he decided he's just going to go
absolutely.
around being more work as a teacher, which I think is a whole joke, that also that he's able to do that, like, because he has money and he's privileged that he could just decide to be a teacher. But
Absolutely.
um, putting that aside, it's just the fact that he found the reasoning in the end is like, okay, well, if I can't find something that I want to do, then maybe I can teach others and then they can find what they want to do. I
Yeah,
kind of I
exactly.
kind of admire that ending. And that actually brings me to another point as well, is these two specific characters that I really liked in the whole film were actually Carl and what was the other guy's name? The guy who's mean, Eric, right?
Yeah.
Carl and Eric were like my favorite characters in the whole film, and they made me laugh the most, and they had the probably the best punchlines. And like, to be honest, like if they weren't in the film, that film would just be completely nothing. They carried the entire film and made it actually a reasonable story, because you
Mhm.
had to have the enemy, but also he was just very good at being that snide businessman, and just had the humor and had the timing, and it was just so well done. And even like that
He's
kind of,
definitely one of the highlights of the movie for sure.
yeah, just one of the best. And then the other gentleman as well, who you probably would have recognized him in Friends, or um yeah, because he was like the neighbor that would always knock on
The
the
neighbor
roof,
upstairs. Yeah.
yeah, or
Yeah,
downstairs or
exactly.
whatever. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, lots of recognizable comedians in this film too. You brought up what was it, Chris Farley?
Yep. Norm Macdonald.
Chris Farley in this film, it kind of made me, it always made me feel in pain when I watched him in this movie, because he did this thing where he'd get really like red and angry and just kind of explode, and that scared me. Like, that looked painful. You know what I mean? Every time I watch him, I was just like, oh, don't, why do you gotta go so far?
Well, I
Like,
mean, I mean, with all the knowledge that we have now about Chris Farley and everything that he put himself through,
yeah.
to get himself to a certain point to so he could perform comedically.
Hmm.
Um, I think a lot of times too is just seeing him in some of his older roles. It just kind of brings back uh sad memories about losing such a talented actor.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. No, for sure. He's made me laugh in Saturday Night Live so many times, but and just in this movie in particular, it was just like interesting to see him kind of only take a very slight role. I mean, there was the moment that I thought was funny, was that when he was eating all the kids' lunches,
all the
and he thought
lunches,
that was,
yeah.
yeah, that was hilarious, but also really bizarre. But yeah, I thought that was funny. Um, the That brings us to the scene where he Adam Sandler pees his pants to like help the kid that peed his
Help the
pants.
other kid out. Yep.
Yeah, and I thought, you see, like, that could have been a heartwarming scene, except now he's teaching kids to pee their pants, and
Yeah,
that
exactly.
just is disgusting. And like, can
Yeah,
you
I mean, you can
imagine what that
appreciate,
bus smelled like after?
right?
It would have smelled like a regular
Jesus,
city bus, like
right?
on a Friday or something. Yeah.
It I mean, you can definitely appreciate the the attempt to to look out for this kid. But like you said, it's
Yeah.
misguided as most of his advices throughout. Well, yeah,
Yeah, and
most
that's
of
also why it becomes like really scary, and it's funny, it's ironic, but it's scary that he decides to be a teacher in the end because
it. Now,
like
my one of my favorite lines from the movie was actually from that peeing scene. Was the old lady that works
oh yeah.
at she's like, if peeing yourself is cool, then I'm Miles Davis. I died laughing when she said that.
Yeah.
um, I mean, among all of the lowbrow humor in the movie, I thought that was a great joke.
Yeah,
Um,
that those little punches are really funny. Yeah. I think
um,
those still stand the test of time. And then there was something that Norm Macdonald did say in one of the scenes. Well, he was actually pretty funny as being kind of like a loser who doesn't want to do anything character. Like he just kind of sits there and he's just floating around. But I mean, it's not any different than
yeah,
any regular Norm Macdonald. So I wouldn't say he
he just
stands
kind
out
of
as an
plays that
actor.
role, right?
Yeah, but he does what he does well, right? So yeah. And then on top of that, there was the okay, I guess we have to get to it at some point, but like the love scene, the love stuff between this and this movie is just ridiculous. Like they could have just not had a love interest in this movie. It would have been so much better. I
Well, I
mean,
mean,
maybe not
look,
so much better, but like it would have been a lot better if there
I
was just
I look at it now and I'm just kind of thinking this is really weird because this is a teacher student power dynamics that are occurring here, and it's just
right. There's the teacher student power dynamic. That's one thing. The other thing is like they don't really touch on what suddenly makes her think he's sexy, other than he behaves like a child and she likes that he's like that. Like, ew. Like
yeah,
what is it
it's
that you find attractive about Adam Sandler in this movie? It's just not healthy. And I mean, they do bring it up a couple of times with the maid in the house where she keeps making remarks about it, like, oh, well, you want me to take my shirt off or and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, I get the flirty maid, but like,
I think
what
this is
is
something I think
happening?
it's been brought up a few times, like lately in the last few years, where a lot of 90s movies they kind of crossed some lines when it came to adult and
Misogyny?
child relationships. Oh,
Yeah.
well, yeah, that too, but I was just saying adult and
Yeah.
child relationships. I don't know if you recall the Disney movie Blank Check, but like there's literally a scene where an actual child goes on a date with a grown-ass woman, and it
Oh,
just
yeah.
it's yeah, and I feel like I
We
kind of
have to
feel
actually,
this is
well, I don't want to give up too much about that because I think that's one of those ones that we should definitely do for this. Yeah, we should definitely talk about Blank Check. That's a good one.
but
Yeah.
and I mean that's a Disney movie too, so you just got to be wondering what the hell is going through their minds. But again, um,
Yeah.
I think we're talking about the mid '90s, early '90s here, so there are definitely some different sensibilities. I mean, especially when we compare them to now. Um, would stuff like that get approved in a movie nowadays? I mean, m maybe not. I don't know. I guess it would really depend on the actual subject matter of the movie itself. But I feel like a lot of us are just kind of, as they would say now, it just gives us the ick, right? That kind of, again, just those situations between adults and children or students and or just those that dynamic where there's that difference in power between the two people. It's just I think people are kind of done with those kinds of tropes in movies and TV shows.
Yeah,
No,
absolutely.
I certainly am. I think there's better ways to do things than just use those kind of tired, played out methods of doing it.
Yeah, but it with the whole nanny thing, it almost makes me feel like Adam Sandler wants somebody to boost his confidence about how he looks all the time. Like there's just like too much of it in that movie. Like he has to have something that makes him feel like he's a good looking man, and that's kind of weird, but it's in the movie. I mean, it's in all his movies. Let's not be,
The
but at
rich guy
least
thing, it seems to be like,
yeah, I mean, at least with Happy Gilmore, um, like you get him being an adult version of himself, and he occasionally does the like weird voices. But in Billy Madison, he's very much this like child. It's almost like this was the movie that, remember the movie with Robin Williams, Jack,
Jack.
right?
Yep,
Yeah, it's
absolutely. I
almost
was
like
just thinking that
yeah,
as you were
it's almost
saying
like
that. I
they
was
were
just
making
thinking
he was making
like
Jack,
Jack,
but like as a comedy. You know what I mean? Where Jack is actually a very sad story. He's kind of made it into a comedy where it's like, what if just an idiot adult, behaves like a child, because that's most adult men anyway.
right?
Right.
The
Right. I mean,
most
I'm
privileged
not gonna
adult
take
men.
myself out of this because I am an adult man, and at least that's how I see myself.
I
And
mean, it certainly begs the question, if certain men were left to their devices, if they had infinite wealth,
mhm.
um, like what would they do? Like, would you invariably end up in a situation like Billy Madison, where you're just riding mini cars over your fucking property or dune buggies and riding
Yeah.
over like the
Why
plants
wouldn't
and
you?
shit, getting
Why wouldn't you?
getting
Right.
hammered at whatever hour, right?
Yeah. I mean, isn't that like every rapper's dream? I mean, I'm pretty sure like that's exactly what, you're 17, and then you become world famous, and then you're up into your 20s, and then your mid 20s you're just like
And then that's it. You
crashing on
retire,
your, yeah,
right?
you're drinking your ass off on your lawn, and you're driving around watching penguins and stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's living the
A
dream.
dream, right?
Hmm.
Exactly.
But I think they do a good job of showing you like he's wasting his time. But you're right. Like it just, the level of privilege that he has, it kind of like it does. Now that you've brought up like Blank Check and like just other children's movies like that, Richie Rich, stuff like that, where it's like very wealthy child, like those, that's, as a child, that was a dream come true. And I think that you hit a really good point on what would have attracted me. Now I don't feel as bad because I know as a child I would have probably loved that idea of just being the kid of very wealthy parents and
Just
not
being
having,
literally being a grown
just
man,
stress
but being a
free,
child,
just
right?
being completely stress free. Like the worst case scenario was that guy was going to own the company, and then he would still get to do whatever the hell he wanted with the money that his dad left him.
Yeah, exactly.
So there was no worst case for Billy Madison. There really wasn't. The only worst, like it's the only sad thing that happened, which is kind of not necessarily sad because apparently he's not a good boss because he has no ethics or something. But like that was the thing that destroyed Eric, right? The character
Hmm.
is he's not
Yeah.
ethical. But I mean, at the end of
Well,
the
I mean,
day,
you could see throughout the entire movie how he was trying to sabotage Billy. From
yeah.
bribing the principal to all kinds of stuff, and it really seemed that um
But
the
and that
the
the funny thing is that a whole thing could have not even happened. He could have not gone through that experience
Mhm.
and just said to his dad, "Give the company to Frank," and he could have just been exactly the same person the entire, like he
but I
nothing
think
had to change.
I don't but I think Billy, he hadn't there was zero growth. I mean, that's one thing that they
Yeah.
do illustrate quite well in this movie, is that
Oh
personal
yeah.
growth that Billy goes through, right? I mean, I think that's why they show us on purpose, what kind of a mess he is from the very beginning of the movie.
Mm,
He's drinking beers in the pool or whatever, or poolside,
mm-hmm.
um, versus the end of the movie. And, even throughout the movie, we see how he slowly does, become almost like a real man.
Right. Yeah. Well, by the end, he's singing, and he's singing in a boisterous voice, and his girlfriend's after his girlfriend kicked his butt and then woke him up from his drunken stupor. Um, do you have any more gum? More gum? More gum? Do you have any more gum? Yeah, so that whole scene was hilarious. I thought that was funny. And
It
also it
was.
didn't it's what Adam Sandler is really famous for was those tapes that he used to do in the 90s where he'd sing these ridiculous songs about absolutely nothing, and that's really
The
what
turkey
made him.
song.
Yeah,
You
those
know,
those are the things that really made him. And then, for him to include that in Billy Madison, I think that's what makes the whole entire film. Is just that final scene.
well, it very much very much seems like classic Adam Sandler right there. Is yeah,
Yeah.
the little songs that he sings.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, that's definitely something that I listened to quite a bit. When I was in high school, for that was Adam Sandler's. I did enjoy his songs versus the um the movies.
Mhm. Yeah, very much. I mean, I can't even remember, to be honest, liking him that much in Saturday Night Live. I'd have to rewatch the scenes with him, but yeah, definitely. I enjoyed his humor in the tapes more than the films. I mean, later on, Happy Gilmore changed things again because there was more of a story, a linear path.
Yeah, exactly.
There was a little more logic. I mean, not to take away, but like no one else will ever make a movie like this ever again, because it's just so it like it's a fun idea, but not really well thought up from the beginning. Like just again, like an adult man going through school for 2 weeks.
Well, I
Um,
mean, the themes that are in the movie are pretty
yeah,
pretty common.
there's no way any human could learn enough information that you would go through that much school in 2 weeks. There's no human who could do that.
No,
Like that's
especially
not.
when you get to high school, right?
And I like that
You're
they
not going
show
to
that in the
learn.
end anyway, because like they enter, like he asks him about War and Peace or something like that. He's like, "Oh well, I have this great story about this dog," and then, oh no, it was like something to do with like something financial, right? I can't remember what it was exactly about paying fiscal salary or something. I can't remember what it was, but it was just like completely off. He was talking about this dog, and he's like, the dog. Oh no, it was the industry, the industrial period. That's what it was. And the dog is the industry, you see, but he never found him. And it makes absolutely no sense. And then one of
Yeah,
my favorite lines
exactly.
in the whole film. And then he's like, "Yeah, I think you just made the entire audience dumber with that." Like everybody's IQ has just dropped, basically, from you telling that story. I award you no points, and may God God rest your soul or something. So crazy. Yeah, it was crazy. Good ending. And then Steve Buscemi, he had a very light scene in that, and I thought that was interesting. I think I'd want to touch more on that. Yeah, just the fact that he's supposed to be like the stereotypical like geek that was picked on in high school, probably plotting to shoot everybody that picked on him
And then
eventually,
crosses off his name
and then crosses off his name. I thought that was
after he
kind of.
calls him to apologize. And again, that I think that was a perfect example of, and I think it came when Billy got bullied when he was in high school again,
Mm-hmm,
right? He had all
mm-hmm.
that food thrown on him and shit, and everybody's explaining to him, how does it feel to be a loser? He's like, "Oh, I'm not a loser. What are you talking about?" And,
You're a
and then
loser
I think
because everybody says you're a loser.
it was that moment of like self-realization, and I think that's what kind of led to him
Yeah.
uh calling the other guy up and apologizing for the way he treated him, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, that was a very heartwarming scene. It was very nice. I thought it was cute.
I actually wasn't
Um,
expecting that, but it was nice
mhm,
to see.
mhm. Yeah, that was a good scene. The others, okay, the other scene that was weird, everything again that has to do with the love interest was really bizarre because, okay, I didn't
Agreed.
understand what made her like him in the end. I mean, she had to be that shallow that she just really wanted him for the money. But there's something weird also about like how he gets Ernie. It's not even like that he brought him to his house because it wasn't the same kitchen as the one in his house, right? They went to Ernie's house and like his parents let him hang out with this adult man from school that is only going to his class for 2 days. Like, you know what I mean? And he's just hanging out in this kid's kitchen with him, and he gets him to call the girl that he's interested in. And I get what the scene they're trying to make here, but again, the suspension of disbelief they're asking here, it's very
I found
bizarre.
that
It's
I
very
found that
bizarre.
throughout the movie, they really do expect you to suspend belief at several points during the movie.
Yeah, like you really have to just like give up what you normally think of this situation uh, to
Exactly.
to understand that it's just trying to be adorable. It's not trying to be, you know, a depiction of a man who's like trying to harm kids or anything. It's a depiction of a very immature adult who thinks he is a child, he's Jack, and he needs to. So he is this adult man, and he is accepting the fact that he is a man. And it's kind of like
Mhm.
Peter Pan syndrome, right? Like it's the same concept. And I think a lot of us, like even now, I'm going through that in my 40s where I'm like, I feel like I'm still in my 20s, but you know, and I think that's where this stuff comes from, like the 40s are the new 30s and the but
Yeah,
really
yeah,
it's just a lot of mixture of generations. And but what really it comes down to is, like you were saying right from the beginning, is it's the generation, and not just the generation, it's the generation of privilege. He's from that generation of privilege, and there's going to be a huge influx of these children, right? Because there's going to be more adults leaving more wealth to more children, and eventually that's going to change things. But not I'm not saying for the better or for the worse. I'm just saying it changes things in a dramatic way where you have a lot of children who don't necessarily need the positive ambition or the push to do anything because
yeah.
they have everything handed to them, right? um and I'm not saying that necessarily I think that there should be pushed into doing anything other than being themselves, but again, it's it's difficult when you come from a background when you know you grew up in a world where you had to work really hard for everything to
Hmm.
understand what it would be to be this simple person who just doesn't have these attachments to things because he's just lived such a privileged life. Because not only is he privileged in the way of like wealth, he also is privileged in the fact that he had a single parent who cared about him.
Yep.
um, you know, the dad seems to actually care about what happens to his son, even though his son is a deadbeat or whatever. Um, you know, anything that his son did, it made him happy. And so it just seems like that's like the kind of dad you would want if he was really wealthy, and not he didn't seem to be the kind of guy who would push you in any direction, or he just lets you be who you wanted to be. And so he's just been privileged in so many ways, right? And on top of that being, you know, white, and on top of that being in America and you know in the 90s,
Yeah.
and on top of every other privilege that you can think of. But yeah.
Hmm.
Um, again, that being said, going back to my original point about like his love relationships, is like him being in this situation with like this Ernie character, him like having to tell a kid to call her and tell her if she likes him, and like would she like to date, like that what to me was so inappropriate. Like I know, again, like suspension of disbelief, but it was so inappropriate, um because Yeah, I mean, even as an adult woman, I would have not thought that was cute. For me as a
No.
child, I thought, you know, that was probably the worst influence I probably got from the film was the, like, it showed me that that's how you hit on girls. And,
Yeah.
you know, like, it's just not a good look. It's not a good look. It's not cute. It's, it's kind of stocky. It's, it's got all kinds of bad written all over it.
Yeah. It's
But
really
anyway,
cringe.
yeah. So I just kind of like look at that whole thing with the love scene and try to ignore it throughout the film. I like the problem is I like that actress. She's very cute. She's very nice. I like, you know, but it just there's no like frequency. It just kind of goes from 0 to 100. It goes from like she didn't like him at all, wouldn't give him the time of day, and then he pees his pants in front of her, and then she's like, yeah, maybe I'd sleep with him, you know, like that. You know, like it
Yeah.
just doesn't compute. I feel like they could have made it just like she's his friend in that story, you know, they stay friends after all that. But
Hmm.
again, they took it wherever they took it, and it's fine. It exists now in this universe. And you know, Billy has to have his love interest where he walks away with, you know, the cute blonde girl that undresses for him when he's doing algebra.
When when
Or
he answers the right questions.
yeah, yeah, perfect. Yeah, he gets everything. Cool. I like that. You know, I'm gonna make a movie about myself where I'm just like, I get everything I've ever wanted. You know?
Right?
I guess that's how it's. Yeah, again, just going back to my teenage self and thinking about your reference to blank check. It just that's what it is. It's all about, you know, caring about yourself and that when you're watching
Kind
that
of,
movie.
yeah.
Yeah, just really loving yourself. Yeah, but yeah. Did you have anything else you wanted to add about the film?
Not really.
Not
Um,
really.
I mean, it had a couple of moments that were, nostalgic or whatever, but I think for the most part, um, the kind of Adam Sandler movie you want to try to forget.
Yeah. Yeah, I
I mean,
mean,
it's such a far cry from from other. I mean, because Adam Sandler can be a very good actor, and I mean, you look at his dramatic films like Punch Drunk Love or Uncut Gems, like
mhm,
that is like incredible. That is incredible work. So you
mhm.
put that versus something like Billy Madison. I mean, you
Yeah.
can really see how like he figured it out early on. He's like, I can
Well,
make a ton of
you
money
know,
being an
there was a
idiot.
time where people felt the same way about what you feel about Billy Madison about his previous work, which was Overboard. And that, my friend, if I think you should watch that on your own and scream into a pillow the entire time because you'd be like, "What am I watching?" Yeah, so yeah, he had his moments. He had a few good films. He had a few good laughs. He had some really good acting. He's had some incredible roles. But I would say Billy Madison. The thing that wants me to go back, that makes me want to go back and watch it, is that sort of nostalgic feeling for school and all that stuff. The problem is that this movie doesn't really hold up. Like it doesn't bring me those
Definitely not.
nostalgic. It doesn't bring me those nostalgic feelings about school at all. It very lightly touches on school and how that feels and what it's like to grow up. Really, like for a normal person. So um, it has a little bit of philosophy. It has a little bit of that, you know, you might as well do whatever you makes you feel free because
Hmm.
everybody doesn't know what they want to do, and that sort of like there is a little bit of that in there, you know, don't. And then a little bit of this like men grow older but they don't actually grow up. um Although, like, you know, what do you call those other men that are in their suits that are sitting there listening to everything he does and all the craziness that he spews and the annoying, you know, behaving like an annoying brat at that age
Hmm.
at the dinner table? Like, what? like you have like the Frank and then you have the Eric, right? Like you have, and then Frank is the kind of guy who just kind of chills, thinks it's humorous what Billy does, and but he's kind of a weird guy himself, right? And then you have the Eric character who's like, look, I worked so hard to get here.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And I feel like I should be cut a break at this point. And I
Right.
don't completely see that as wrong, and I think that there's something about that I mean, this movie is almost trying to say that hard work is bad, but that's not necessarily the truth. I mean, that's just a version of the truth. Hard work can be hard. Hard work cannot always be, um, doesn't always get you what you want. That's something that is a good lesson to be learned. Sometimes you have to work and work and work, and you have to look somewhere else.
Hmm.
And I think those are important lessons in life. But I think at the end of the day, just like being so free and so um, safe, secure monetarily would be nice for a change. And I think that would relieve so many stresses from your day to day that you would be able to do what Billy Madison does in this movie and just kind of act like a goof at his age. And
Yeah,
I and I,
exactly.
and I almost feel like I would, you know what I mean? Because I could, because why not?
Well, yeah, given the
And
circumstances, for sure.
yeah. And you know what? I feel like a lot of these actors and actresses, that's what they do. Celebrities, Madonna, singers, uh, Madonna behaves however she feels like, and
Hmm.
fuck the press, basically, right?
I
Because it's
mean,
like,
a lot of people they get to a certain point, like in terms of money, and yeah, nothing,
yeah, you're
nothing
so
matters
secure that you don't have to worry about how people
anything.
think you present yourself. Yeah.
No, exactly.
Or Michael Jackson. That's a great example. To this day, people will still say they love him, even though he's a known pedophile, right? So,
Right.
you know. But anyway, I digress. Uh, it was good that we started with conversation about Billy Madison and ended with pedophile. Um, I mean, right? Like this movie, if you wanted the dark version, right? Like an adult man allowed to go back to school because he's rich to play with children. Like, okay, what? No, no, that's illegal. Get the fuck out of the school. Like, if I was the principal, I'd be like, immediately no. Like, you're not letting this adult man. I don't care how
Yeah,
much you're paying
exactly.
me. That's just wrong. Okay. But anyway, that being said, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed our little chat, and hopefully you'll enjoy our next one. Have a great time.
Enjoy.
Gimme that in the city chill. Jump around in my whip, itty bitty, looking pretty chill. Put my shades on, you ain't even seen it yet. Man, I'm so fresh, and you know I'm always spelling chill. Give me what you want, what you got, cause I never get enough. You ask me how I want it, and you say you want a chance on me. Chances so you don't know how to do this shit respectfully. I say it like it rough, cause I need a man protecting me. I ain't say this shit, but later I said, baby, come and get it. Feels taking over if you let him. I'ma take the paper, I'ma roll it up, and later he might do what he wanted, cause I let him. Give me something that I'm never gonna forget, because baby, I'm the only one you gotta impress. I won't take any more, and I won't take any less. I'm the queen in this, you know I got the finesse. Give me that, give me that, give me that. Give me that feeling. Bring it back, bring it back, bring it back. Like when we were young. Like when we were young. Like when we were young.
Bring it back, yeah, just bring it back. Sitting in the back, yeah, I'm rolling up some Trinidad. Feeling like the bestest, always got the best shits. Come around, baby, yeah, you knowin' who the best is. And I just bought a record, so y'all don't get it twisted. I ain't talking cheese, even though I'm buzzing, listen. You don't wanna miss it when you get the feeling, it'll make you explicit like a new addiction, baby, it'll take a hold. I know you're feeling cold, cause I've been feeling cool. You give me all these feelings that I used to have in school. These butterflies got me feeling high, like I'm floating through the air, hanging out like a satellite. Yeah, it's really got me feeling right. All around me, yeah, looking like a ceiling light. Hanging out with a heather glow. See me from the center of the earth with no telescope.
Everything